So welcome everybody. Today, which is our last session for the spring 2021 semester, we're going to talk about getting ready for final exams. And I know that they're a few weeks away, but I'm sure you're already starting to strategize how are you going to study and how are you going to get all that information into your brain so that you can do your best on your exams. So we're going to talk about study strategies and also some, kind of attitude strategies, as well as ways to help you stay focused when you take your exams. So the first thing I really want you to think about is creating a positive mindset. I've done a lot of finals myself, and I know that sometimes going into a final exam, we don't feel confident in the material, especially if it's a class we're not very good at. Like in my case, history was always an issue for me. And I remember going into final exams, being really anxious. And, but reminding yourself that, you can be successful on your exams, that tell yourself, just say it over and over that I can do this. I know I can do this. I know I'm going to put my best effort in. And kind of think back to previous exams where you were anxious going in and you came out and you ended up with a good grade. Sometimes when we have a class that's particularly challenging, we're not looking for that A, we're just looking for, I need to get the grade I need to get credit for this class. So also don't put pressure on yourself to get a super perfect score. It's really about, I'm going to put in my best effort. And I know that if I put in my best effort, that I can do this. Because when we doubt ourselves and talk negatively to ourselves, it can impact our ability to learn because it creates anxiety. One thing I like to do is pick a quote, and say it over and over to yourself, and it could be something as simple as the picture here. It says, you can do it. Just say, I can do it. I know I can do it. I've done it before. I can do it again. So the first thing is really create that positive mindset. And even if it's a class you're really concerned about, just focus on the fact that you can do this. You've done it before. You can do it again. Right? So also with that in mind, we want you to focus on calming the mind and the body. When we're anxious, we lose about 70% of our capacity to think. Anxiety is a really big detriment to learning, and particularly when you're on an exam, using strategies to calm down your body can really help you focus and, remember those answers to the questions. So leading up to finals, creating some strategies in your life, some routine in your life that is going to consistently on a day-to-day basis bring you calm, restful, peaceful, mind and body. So, you might do grounding. I know that we've talked about this before. We've talked about grounding in other sessions. Grounding is about bringing your attention to where your body is now. So you can go for a walk or you can do grounded walking. Grounded walking is feeling your body walking, feeling that whatever the surface is you're walking on. Maybe it's soft because it's grass or it's hard pavement. Maybe you're walking somewhere there's a lot of leaves and you can hear them crunching under you. Maybe you can hear birds or feel the wind. And so mindful walking brings your attention to your body's experience right now, and it's very calming. So pick something that helps you calm down. For some people, it's not going to be that. It's going to be like, I want to take a really good run. I want to get my heart pumping and get all that excessive anxiety energy out. And that is calming. So you need to figure out what works best for you. Sleep is crucial. So when we don't sleep, that affects our adrenal glands, which in turn affects our emotions. because then some of the excitatory hormones get out of balance. So sleep is really important. So setting up a good sleep routine and making it a priority. And sometimes it's difficult at night if you haven't gotten everything done. But remembering, like, if I need to get to bed by 10:30 so that I can be rested when I get up at 6:30. That's kind of the mindset. And it's good to keep that routine on the weekend if you can. I know it's really difficult, especially if you're busy and you're tired, you want to sleep in. But it's good for your body to get into a sleep routine. You'll sleep better. You don't have to do meditation if you don't like it. I'm not a big fan of meditation, but I'm a big fan of grounding and things like that. And if you can avoid video games, video games and too much talking to other people, if it's all about things that are upsetting or challenging, these can cause us to get more distraught. There's a lot of research that shows video games stimulate areas of the brain that can cause hyperactivity and impact focus. So I know they're a big thing and a lot of people like them. But leading up to your finals, you might take a break for a while. And if you have family members or people in your life who need to share problems or they want to talk through challenging things, if possible, if you can say, can we wait till after my finals to go over this? And just focusing on how can I stay as restful as possible. So you have a few weeks, you have 3 weeks until finals begin. So here's an opportunity for you to create a study schedule. Actually, you have 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks. Oh my goodness. You have 2 weeks till your finals begin. So create a study schedule now, starting tomorrow. You want to look at all your classes and figure out how much time do you feel like you need to prep for your finals. Like, what do you think you should do? So if you're taking a math class, you might say, I want to do 100 problems before the final, and it takes me on average to do 5 minutes for every problem. Well, how much time is that? That's 500 minutes. That's like 8 hours or something. So figure it out how much time that you need and use an Excel or Google spreadsheet to actually create a schedule and block off the time slots. Make sure that you're not working long periods of time so you exhaust yourself and then it's harder to focus. So plan breaks and do things during those breaks that help rejuvenate your mind and help to calm you down and make you feel balanced. Study when you're most productive. Some people do really well in the mornings. Some people do better at night. So, I often with my work, a lot of what I do in my work is I do graphic stuff for the office, different things. I can do the graphics for PowerPoint or things like that. I always do those things at the end of the day because I'm better in the morning and I can do the graphic stuff easier than when I have to focus and write a lot of emails and handle a lot of details. So think about that with your classes. Like maybe you're really good at history and that's an easy subject for you. So study that one when you're not as productive, but the ones that are really hard, do that during your peak times when your brain's really going to be fresh. And really the key with a study schedule is sticking to it. And I know that that's very difficult, but when you create the study schedule, then, use your computer or your phone to set up alarms to remind you to start and stop your studying. And it's really key to set up those reminders and then do it. It takes some willpower, but remind yourself there's a goal. And if you have a hard time getting going, a couple weeks ago, we did a workshop on procrastination. You can watch that. But I encourage you to think about what it will feel like to do well on your finals. And if you don't want to get up and study, say, I really want to do well on my finals. So feel what that feels like. And if that doesn't work, then feel what it feels like to not do well in your finals, because then you say, I really don't want to feel like that. And that'll motivate you to get up and start studying. So I know that this is difficult, and especially if you have subjects that are really hard and you don't want to study. I have memories of doing this with physics in my undergrad. Oh, that was a hard subject for me. So space out your study sessions if you can. If you aren't taking a lot of classes, or if you feel like you don't need to study every minute leading up to finals, build in breaks. Using the Pomodoro method, that's awesome. We've talked about that before. And what that is you basically study in shorter spurts. So you might study for 25 or 30 minutes and then take a 5 or 10-minute break, and then study for 25, 30 minutes, take a 5 or 10-minute break. You do that 4 times, and then you take a longer 30 to 60-minute break, and then you do it again. And so that often will make you more productive when you're studying. And that's the key, is you want to have your brain be as fresh and focused as possible. And you could do a Pomodoro, like you could do 4 of those for a class and then move to the next class. You need to figure out how to chunk your studying. Is it better for you to spend one day all focused on one class, or is it better you to spend some time on one class and then go to another class? So you figure that out. Research has shown that this kind of study method works better, that the brain does better when you study for shorter periods of time than if you spend hours and hours trying to cram all the info in. It does require pre-planning. So again, that schedule, really, and if you don't know how to do it, reach out and get some help to create a schedule, because I know that's not the easiest thing to do. So getting regular exercise, I'm sure that you guys have had this experience that when you get exercise, you sleep better, you think clearer. Just doing the exercise, you get more oxygen into your brain, and you're more alert and you're calmer. Because exercise is not just about the muscles and the cardio, but actually it helps with a lot of the neurotransmitter and hormone imbalances in the body. And so it can help regulate all of that. So making sure that you get exercise, it doesn't have to be vigorous, going out and getting walks. If you're not used to getting exercise, I caution you about don't do too much, because that will have the opposite effect because you aren't used to it. But doing stuff to really get that oxygen moving in your body and just helping your body feel more balanced. It's really, it should be part of your study schedule. And I know that we do this with work. We actually put on our calendars, I'm going to go take a walk. We do it. And sometimes, and when we're in the office, we do it as a group. We'll all go together, take a 20-minute walk, because it really does help. And it's hard to sit for hours and hours and hours at a time. If you have audiobooks, when you exercise, you could listen to your books too. Or if you, we're going to talk about some study strategies, but if you have study strategies where you have to memorize information, you could audio record yourself reading it, and then while you're walking, you could listen to it. So then you're getting the benefits of the cardio, and then you're also helping with the studying. So staying focused is really difficult, I know, and especially at home. And it's so interesting. One of my kids has gone back to in-person high school, and the difference in the ability to get everything done on time is radical. I mean, it's really, he just said there were too many distractions in my bedroom, and he could hear family members talking outside his room, and he was always wanting to know what was going on. And it's just so much better at school. So I know that staying focused is particularly difficult when you're studying, and there's a lot going on around you. This app we found, and it's so cute. I love this app. It's called the Forest app, and its job is to keep you off your phone. Because in talking with all the students and my own kids, the phone is the biggest problem. And it basically makes it so if you open the app, it starts to grow a tree. If you use your phone, the tree dies. And you might think, well, no big deal. Um, it's just a digital tree. But the cool thing is that if your tree, if your tree grows for the amount of time that you've set, because you tell it like I'm going to study for 35 minutes, let's say, and if the tree grows for that long, then it ends up in your little forest. And after so many trees end up in your forest, the app will plant a real tree in real life. And so that's pretty cool. So you're helping the environment while you're studying. And this would be a great way to do your Pomodoro method. If you're saying I'm going to study for 30 minutes, this could be how you time that 30 minutes, and then it makes it so you don't touch your phone. Because if you do anything on your phone, your tree's going to die. Isn't that a cute way? I like that. I think that's clever, whoever did it, because they tied it into the real world, and you'll be planting trees in the real world. So those are kind of all the things to help you guys get into the mindset, really focus on trying to stay as calm as possible. Don't let yourself get taken away by the anxiety. And, you really need to figure out how and when you're going to study. But then now let's talk about how you study for particular classes. So we all believe, like with studying, you just sit down and keep going over and over and over the material. However, different types of material and different types of exams, you can study in different ways to maximize your ability to do well on the exam. So the first thing you want to think about is, what is the style of the exam? So most final exams are multiple choice, not all, but most. And if you have a multiple choice exam, you want to focus studying on definitions and concepts. So, they're going to be asking you questions where you're going to have to understand, what is X and how X relates to Y, and things like that. If, let's say you're studying an exam for computer science, they might give you snippets of code, and you have to then say what that snippet of code does, or what would be the next string in that snippet of code. So you really want to think about questions having definite answers. Now, it's not always the case, because some teachers make it really hard, and they might say like none of the above, and then it's hard. So it's not always straightforward. But the key is, with multiple choice exams, definitions and concepts, and being able to reiterate that information. For essays, it's a little bit different. With essays, you want to focus on concepts. And of course, you need to know definitions, but it's more how everything relates together. And you're going to need to provide examples usually. So, with essays, it's more like having a conversation, whereas multiple choice exams, it's more like you're reciting facts, if that makes sense. So, as you're thinking about your different final exams, make a note. What kind of exam is it? Sometimes they have multiple choice and short answer. And short answer is going to be more like a multiple choice than an essay. Because usually with short answer, you're not analyzing and combining information. So when you're preparing for memorization, and this is, in certain majors, like if you're in science, especially if you're in health science or a nursing major, there's a lot of memorization, and using acronyms and mnemonics. So does anybody know what Roy G. Biv stands for?
Isn't it the colors of the rainbow?
Yep.
Red, green, Roy G. Bib. Blue?
Well, it's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to remember the acronym.
yeah, that's why I have a picture of a rainbow here. And that's an acronym. I remember my dad taught me that when we were little kids. And so that's a good example. So one of my kids, he was taking an anatomy class, and they had to do things like memorize the 12 cranial nerves, or memorizing like the bones in the hand. And so he would make up the craziest acronyms to help them remember the first letter of them. And you can make them up, or if you're, you can look them up in Google. If you don't have time to make them up yourself, there are ones in Google for really common things that people need to memorize. So that's a great way to do it. So with mnemonics, it's a little bit different in that you're going to be making up rhymes. So mnemonics is more like playing on words. So for example, if you were looking at the cranial nerves, and you might make up a rhyme that says like the 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. So you might say Vegas isn't good in Vegas because going to Vegas makes you hyper. So the vagus nerve, spelled VAGUS, calms the body down. So you might make up some funny thing like going to Las Vegas isn't good for the Vegas because going to Las Vegas makes you hyper and the vagus nerve calms you down. So making up funny things like that to help you remember what they do is helpful. And again, if you are memorizing something that is common, it's not like something really rare, but something that is a subject that a lot of people have had to memorize. Looking stuff up on the internet, a lot of people have made up these things. And then one of the things too, if you do this, so with my son, when he was taking anatomy, what he would do is he would memorize these kinds of things. And then when he would go to take his exam, before he would even start the exam, he would turn the paper over and he would write them down. He would write down the acronyms and the mnemonics. And then he would start his exam, because in that way, if he got anxious or a little overwhelmed, he didn't have to try and remember. He did it right from the get-go. He would just turn over the paper and see that's where it was. So these can be really helpful if you have a lot of content to memorize. So become the teacher. So this is really good, especially if you have an essay exam and you know that you're going to have to analyze and break apart and put together information. So explaining the information to someone else and see if it makes sense to them. This is a great thing if you could reach out to your classmates and you do it with each other. I did it just the other night with somebody. I'm taking a philosophy class and it's really hard, and we did it. And this is the first week it was easy for me to do my schoolwork. And I was so grateful that we talked it out. And so just take turns explaining things to each other. If you don't have a classmate, you can talk out loud to yourself. You can talk to your cat or your dog or your spouse or your children or a friend, and then you can ask if it's somebody who can talk back to you. You can say, okay, does that make sense to you? What do you think I said? If they're willing to help you with it. It's a great way to really analyze the information. But even if you just talk out loud to yourself, you can kind of think through and talk through the information. Another way to become a teacher is write your own quiz on the material. So look at the material and say, like, what kind of question might I ask on this? If you have a textbook for this class, sometimes at the end of the chapter in the textbook, they have questions. And that might give you an idea of what kind of questions might be good. But then you want to look at like, okay, well, those are individual questions for each chapter. How could I write a question that covered multiple chapters of information? And you really, what you're trying to do here is analyzing the material and relating the concepts to each other. Okay, so if you're looking at, let's say you're in psychology, let's say you're taking psychopathology, which is all the different DSM diagnoses, like mental health diagnoses, you might need to compare. So what's the difference between post-traumatic stress disorder and generalized anxiety disorder or bipolar disorder? Or, what are the difference between the different anxiety disorders? So, because there's several: social anxiety, generalized anxiety, phobia. So how are they the same and how are they different? So that's the kind of thing that you're doing when you become the teacher. You're trying to explain concepts, and so thinking about different ways that you would share the material. And that's fun if you like to teach. So this is one of my favorite tools that a student actually told me about. I call them smart flashcards. And I'm sure you guys have all heard of Quizlet. Well, this is like Quizlet on steroids. It's called brainscape.com, and it's free. And they do have a paid version, but we have found that the free version is adequate. And basically, it uses an algorithm to teach you your content. So if you look at the picture on the right, you can see the flashcard is not just text. You can also put images on the flashcard, which is really cool. And at the bottom, it asks you, well, first it shows you the flashcard, it shows you the answer, and then it asks you, how well did you know this? And if you rate it a 1, which is not at all, or you rate up to a 5, which is I knew it like perfectly right off the bat. And then based on how you rate it, it uses this algorithm to present the content to you. So for example, the ones that you knew at a 5, it only will show them once in a while because you already know that and you don't need to drill yourself. The ones that are a 3, in the beginning, they show you those more because they're helping you learn them. They're hoping that as they keep showing it to you, you can move it up to a 5. The ones that are not at all, they also show them to you, but they only show you 1 or 2 of those at a time, like in a group. They basically group them together, and they only show you a few of those because they know it's going to take more for you to learn them. And then every time they show you the flashcard, you rate it. And so then it actually gives you like a chart where you can see with colors how well you're learning your material. And it really works. And it's a great way to memorize a lot of content. If you're in a subject like anatomy or maybe even history, or like one of my same kid who took anatomy, he had to take an EMT class and he had to memorize all the police codes, like all the emergency codes. We found existing decks, so we didn't even have to create our own deck. So if you're memorizing something that's pretty common, look and see if there's an existing deck. There may even be one that has 70% of what you need, and you just have to add a few more. It's just a really great flashcard program for memorization. It works on your phone and it works on your computer, works on your tablet. So any technology, you could go take this, put it on your phone, and anytime you have to sit and wait, if let's say you're waiting to pick somebody up, or maybe you go to order some food and you have to wait until they make it, you just pull it out and start working on your flashcards. So if you're in a problem-based class, like statistics or math or physics or chemistry, you've got to make peace with those problems. I know it's hard, but doing the problems is how you're going to learn the material. And you want to find as many problems as possible. So if you're taking math or statistics or physics or even chemistry, Khan Academy has a lot of those. Even though they mostly focus on high school, they actually have a lot of honors classes, which are the same curriculum as taught in college. So you want to get as many problems as you can. And you want to do the problems all the way through, explain it out loud as you're doing it, because if you explain it out loud, it helps to solidify, okay, this is the process. And you can go through the same problems multiple times. Just because you did it once doesn't mean it's solid in your brain. So put away what you did and start again. Do the same worksheets again. Ask the professor where to find more. If you are struggling with the problems, then go get tutoring. Go get tutoring. The tutors often give strategies for working through the problems. And I know that this is really difficult because, especially if it's a subject that's hard for you, but with doing problems in a class, it's about understanding the pattern, because problems are patterns. They're just a sequence of events that happen in the same way each time, but the variables may change. So you're really trying to learn, what's the pattern of getting this problem done? How do I solve it? So the best way to commit that to your mind is to just keep doing it over and over and over and over. And I had one of my kids in his math class. He didn't do that the first time. I told him to, and he got a C. And he's done that this 2 subsequent tests he did at. He just did problem after problem. He spent like 4 or 5 hours doing problems, studying for exams, and then he got a 93, and then he got a 99. And so now he believes me. I told him, you just have to do as many problems as you can. So I know it's hard though, especially if it's a subject you don't like. Okay. So I just had another thought. I don't have a slide for it, but if you are studying for a conceptual exam where you have information that you need to interrelate, which is very common in history, philosophy, psychology, sociology, you could use Venn diagrams, or, kind of mapping out how things relate to each other. So, you could, if you have a whiteboard, or you can do it on a piece of paper, where you can draw bubbles with content and how they relate to each other. That would be another way to study and learn conceptual information. It's important to pick a strategy that works for you to learn it. And oftentimes those conceptual classes can be more challenging to study, because there's a lot of different ways that you can look at the content. It's easier, if you're just memorizing facts. Sometimes, not for everybody. So those were all the strategies that I had to prepare you guys for finals. Do you guys have any concerns about studying for finals? About maybe like, how would I study for this class or this content? No? Okay. So our YouTube channel is up. We have a ton of videos on our YouTube channel. If you haven't looked at it, please do. We do, if you're having trouble getting going, we did a really good workshop a couple weeks ago on how to avoid procrastination. That's probably the biggest challenge right now for students. I know everybody's tired. It's been a long semester, particularly challenging with virtual school. Everybody's had to dig deeper to keep going, and you just got to get yourself through finals. So whatever you can do to bribe yourself, focus on beyond finals, focus on the feeling of success, whatever you can do. And it might include watching some of these workshops to help motivate you. Now's the time to pull out all the stops so you can get yourself to the finish line, and just get it done. There's nothing better than that feeling of doing your last final and being done for the semester, and knowing for a while homework is not going to hang over your head, right? It's a good feeling. Okay, so does anybody have any questions?
No, I don't.
I'm going to stop the recording.